Welcome to the Edinburgh Institute's Roundtable on Non-Executive Directors for Competitive Advantage. Today is about one thing: how a properly used non-executive director can shift your competitive position, not just tidy up your governance. It does not matter whether you run a startup, a family business, a professional practice, a charity, or a mid-market corporate, whether you are in services, manufacturing, technology, or the public and third sectors. The principles we are working with apply to any organization that faces competition, risk, and change. We will briefly look at why competitive advantage is harder to build and easier to lose than ever, and what that means for how you design your board. You will see how an Edinburgh Institute non-executive can help you sharpen strategy, spot opportunities and threats earlier, and increase the long-term value of your organization, looking after your 2-year competitive horizon. By the end, you should be clear on 3 points: what competitive advantage really is, how you can markedly improve your edge, and how bringing in a non-executive director whose specific remit is to look after your competitive advantage can create a step change in your proposition, offer, and organization's value, whatever your size, sector, or current challenges. This is the format for today. 1. You think you know competitive advantage. We quickly cover the main hurdles standing in your way of success. 2. Why a non-executive director? 3. The non-executive director for competitive advantage. 4. What's in it for you? Create and sustain a 2-year edge. Okay, let's get straight to the problem. Competitive advantage is almost never where you think it is, and it is almost never what you first assume it to be. When researching and writing the marketing manifesto, it became painfully clear that most managers and marketers could not accurately state where their real advantage lay or where it could come from. They pointed to features, slogans, or brand values, but not to anything that genuinely shifted buyer choice or attention in their favor. What was missing was a disciplined way to uncover an advantage that makes the organization and its offer genuinely distinct, not just cosmetically different, and then to convert that into tangible value. Once that process is in place, competitive advantage stops being a buzzword and starts becoming an asset. That is what the Edinburgh Institute process is designed to do. In short, we call it Think, Trim, Thrive. And we will come back to exactly what that means and how it works in practice shortly. We will not deep dive into this table, but the point is simple. You cannot win on superficial promotion and tactical noise. Competitive advantage comes from the underlying differentiators that reliably move the dial, not from desperate initiatives that might work this quarter and vanish the next. So ask yourself, would you rather be seen as a commodity or as indispensable? Would you rather be trapped in a race to the bottom or enjoy commercial stability and pricing power? Do you want to spend your time firefighting or focusing on the few issues where you create the most value? Do you want to chase every new trend or double down on what specifically and demonstrably makes you stand out? Do you want to feel overwhelmed, stressed, with everything seeming futile, or build an edge that everyone in the organization understands and can easily articulate? Do you want cosmetic activity to feel like you are making progress? Or to align your offer, finally, with what your customers and markets actually need and are willing to pay for? This slide summarizes our approach to changing how you think about competitive advantage and then deploying your strongest, most defensible one. Think. First, we change how you see competitive advantage and how you define your market. You clarify where you can legitimately own space in the customer's mind, and you align this with a stronger, more focused sense of purpose. Trim. Next, you strip out the initiatives, projects, and improvements that are unlikely to move the needle. By deliberately dropping weaker options, you gain a sharper advantage, cleaner priorities, and the ability to respond and adapt without constant distraction. Thrive. Finally, you craft an offer with clearly evidenced, validated value It meets real customer needs. It addresses your own commercial and operational challenges, and it gives you a repeatable formula for sustaining advantage over time. And this is where your non-executive director for competitive advantage from the Edinburgh Institute comes in, to challenge your assumptions, steward this process, and keep your organization anchored to its new, powerful, and continuing edge. This shift in thinking is not just useful, it is critical. Without it, you drift back to copying competitors, accepting that's just how this industry works, and falling into the let's just try this school of desperate experimentation. Your dedicated non-executive director for competitive advantage is there to stop that drift. Their job is to challenge inherited assumptions, stop you chasing noise, and help you stay prepared, predictive, and responsive, rather than reactive and distracted. Think of it as being stuck in the matrix, just like the movie. Inside it, you cannot clearly see your market, your real position or value, or your true options. Your non-exec from the Edinburgh Institute is there to pull you out of that illusion and help you head for the Northern Lights. A clear, navigable view of where your advantage lies and how to stay on course. One of the core jobs of your new non-executive partner is to break the cycle of despair that keeps you stuck. The pattern is familiar. A trigger makes you want to change. You hunt for ideas and latch on to one that looks promising. You invest time, effort, and money. You launch. There's a brief fizz of activity and optimism. Then comes the hangover when results disappoint or fade. At that point, instead of stepping back, you reach for the next trigger, and the cycle starts again. You end up trying to fix everything that confronts you, copying what seems to work elsewhere, and spreading attention and resources thin across too many fronts. Your non-executive director for competitive advantage is there to stop that. They pull you out of the loop, challenge the impulse to do something, anything, and focus you on the few moves that genuinely reinforce your chosen advantage over time. You may, of course, already have a non-exec, a collection of advisors, and a history of initiatives you have tried again and again. Yet all of this can still keep you firmly inside the matrix. Conventional non-execs and advisors often bring conventional thinking. That limits genuine innovation and your ability to adapt, because their frame is best practice, rather than how do we win, here, now. A competitive block creeps in. If they do not understand how to build and defend an advantage, specific to you and you alone, they cannot help you compete better. The result is usually more information, more reports, more advice, and more indecision. Opportunities are missed. Differentiation is blurred, and your time and energy are diluted across product, service, offer, and brand, with no clear edge. So here is the difference between a traditional non-executive and your non-executive director for competitive advantage. The traditional non-exec is primarily about risk, compliance, and keeping the organization out of trouble. Their center of gravity is cost control and compliance, important, but rarely enough to change your competitive position or create real growth. Your non-executive director for competitive advantage starts from a different place: revenue, opportunity, and strategic edge. Their focus is on where and how you win, how you protect and extend that win, and how you translate it into long-term, sustainable value and revenue. In a nutshell, the traditional non-exec often becomes a ceiling on governance and cost mitigation. Your new non-exec is a value maximizer, your trusted architect for growth and success. Moving beyond just compliance has measurable rewards. This radar map shows the difference. Across the 6 key measures, the traditional non-exec only really stands out on compliance and risk mitigation. Your non-executive director for competitive advantage scores higher on all the other dimensions that drive growth and long-term value. And there is a twist. A well-designed competitive advantage actually lowers risk as well. So in practice, a non-exec for competitive advantage has the potential to outperform across all 6 measures, not just the growth-oriented ones. This slide shows how most boards and senior teams actually spend their time, resources, and energy. In a typical meeting, hindsight, compliance, and administration dominate the agenda, while foresight, strategy, and growth are squeezed into whatever time is left. Bringing in a non-executive director for competitive advantage is about rebalancing that equation. Their presence helps shift the center of gravity of the board towards current and future value. More time on foresight, strategy, and growth, and less on backwards-looking detail that others in the organization are better placed to handle. The result is not just better decisions, but better meetings, more focus on what could go right, not just what might go wrong, and more time spent on the work that you and your fellow directors actually find meaningful and energizing. We will not go into all the detail here, but this is the typical rhythm your non-executive director for competitive advantage works to and keeps you working to as well. They replace the old cycle of despair with a disciplined, repeatable way to check, refresh, and redeploy your competitive advantage so it stays sharp and compelling. Instead of passive oversight, you get active overperformance. Someone whose job is to be your insurance against irrelevance, continually testing whether your edge is still real in the market. The result is a rolling, 2-year competitive advantage horizon. At any point in time, you know what your edge is, that it is at its peak, and what you are doing now will extend it. Your support does not stop at the boardroom. Alongside the work you do with your non-executive director for competitive advantage, you also have your own Edinburgh Institute app on your smartphone. It installs directly to your phone, giving you immediate access without having to go through an app store. Inside the app, you have 2 things: a library of practical resources and your own private area, where all the critical, specific work we have done together is stored and easy to retrieve. That means your competitive advantage thinking is always to hand for board meetings, strategy sessions, market planning, and day-to-day decisions. Instead of bulky reports that get filed and forgotten, you have your key advantages in your pocket, ready to use in sales conversations, presentations, content and campaign creation, and investor or stakeholder discussions. And as part of your non-exec package, you also unlock online courses that deepen your capability to find, refine, and deploy your advantage. In summary, a relatively small shift in how you understand competitive advantage, combined with working alongside a dedicated non-executive director for competitive advantage, can produce very real, very practical, and ongoing business returns. On this strategic velocity and future vision measure, a traditional advisor scores around 5. Your new non-exec is up at 9 because the focus is growth, differentiation, and forward momentum, not just control. So the question is simple. Do you want to remain in the matrix of management mediocrity? Or are you ready to head for the northern lights of clear, attention-grabbing, customer harnessing, strong and defensible differentiation? Could you handle more of the right business? Would you benefit from a competitive advantage upgrade? And are you prepared to make that co-investment with us to secure it? Remember, in creating your competitive advantage doesn't just stop at having it. It resolves many more matters than you think for your company. The promise is clear: to show you how to build and maintain a rolling, sustainable 2-year edge with a sustainable competitive advantage that is as close as possible to irrefutable, irrefusable, and irresistible in your chosen market. To take the next step, download the Edinburgh Institute app now and secure your non-executive director for competitive advantage. Think differently. Trim what does not matter. Thrive on an edge that is irrefutable, irrefusable, and irresistible. Download the app and secure your non-exec for competitive advantage at app.edinburghinstitute.app.